a few years ago, right after President Obama was elected, I had recently read a book by Michael Pollan called In Defense of Food, and I found it pretty inspiring. I grew up in Iowa. About the early 80s, I started working on farms to make a living. My mom was a home ec teacher, so I'd been hearing about food and health and all of this stuff my entire life. And I was listening to the radio. It was the Thursday after the election, and I love National Public Radio, and so I was listening, and they were having a call-in show asking, who would you like to suggest for secretary positions in the new administration? And some guy called up and said, yeah, I think Michael Pollan for Secretary of Agriculture. And I laughed and thought it was kind of funny, and woke up the next morning and thought, well, this makes sense. I really like this guy. So I don't know if you know who Michael Pollan is, but he's a professor of journalism at Berkeley. He's written 5 or 6 best-selling books right now. The first one is called the first one is The Omnivore's Dilemma, and the second one is In Defense of Food. And they're all about food. He gets really deep into the food system, why the system is so sick, why we are getting sick. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the system itself. You know, I'm now the third speaker. Everybody's kind of talking about systems in place. And we're all here to kind of identify these systems, identify what might be wrong with them, and then maybe do something about them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show a bunch of different statistics. I'm not a physician. I'm an AV guy, which you may see by my running around here. But this is my avocation. And so we did this, and this kind of turned me into a lobbyist. And so every year for the last 3 years, I've gone into Washington, D.C., and participated in the Farm Food Voices National Lobby Day as one of the co-hosts of that event. So what we do is we go in, we train farmers primarily, but essentially anybody who likes food, to go in and meet with their lobbyists, go meet with the staffers, and ideally even the representatives and the senators that represent you from all over the country, to go in and you know, educate them about what's going on in the family farm. And these are definitely small farms. It's a grassroots kind of thing, and it's really an awful lot of fun. So what we do is we bring food into the Senate building. And this is actually a photograph of the first year. I don't know if you know Joel Salatin. He's mentioned in Pollan's first book. He is kind of the nation's gentleman farmer. He is a whacked out, completely insane guy. He's really great, and that's his pig. So the first year he actually donated this pig, and we didn't really know what was going on in Washington. None of us really had an awful lot of experience lobbying and, you know, taking things into the Senate building. And so we showed up with this full-size roast pig. And I don't know if you've ever been into any of these or been into the state buildings or anything, but they have the same kind of metal detectors that they have at the airport. They said, you got to put the pig through the metal detector. The metal detector is made for a handbag. It's not made for a pig. So after about 3.5 hours, luckily we were there plenty early, we got a staffer of somebody important enough in the Ag Committee that actually allowed us to carry it in after, you know, scanning it and wanting it and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So we got the pig into the building. And the great thing about it is that we really brought people from all sorts of areas together. Essentially, my thing is that this is all around my favorite thing in the world, which is food. My favorite hobby is cooking, and my second favorite hobby is eating. I love food, and like I said, I grew up in an agricultural area, and I know what it's like to work on a factory farm. I still have nightmares about some of the things that I experienced when I was a teenager. And so that's where some of my passion comes to actually do this and donate my time and my energy to the lobbying effort. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some statistics here that's over time. Some of this is fairly recent. So we're looking at just obesity and diabetes. And what you're seeing is up here, the years go by. I think we started in '94. And as the map gets redder, you'll see that the instances of these diseases are just increasing. And so we've gone from essentially white and yellow to almost orange. And then here's a basic summary. Yeah, we start in '94 with white and yellow, and we end up with orange and red. And if you look at these percentages, you know, we're talking about some pretty amazing stuff. We, as a nation, are getting sicker. we're getting fatter, and we're getting sicker. So this I thought this was interesting. I found this yesterday and thought I'd throw it in there. It's from the Florida Health Department, so I thought I'd keep it a little local. So obesity-related chronic diseases, cardiovascular disease, cancer. We just talked a little bit about cancer, diabetes, and arthritis. Obesity risk factors. I think we all pretty much know all this stuff. One of the interesting things I find here are this chronic heart disease. Population at risk is 17. Population for stroke is 20. So essentially, that's over a third of our population is currently at risk for either of these diseases that, as Caesar said a little bit earlier, are changeable. They're lifestyle things. Most of these things, 9 out of 10 of the top instances, are due to lifestyle habits, primarily a lot of them due to eating. Okay, so here we are. We're kind of looking at this little trend area here, 1980. Diabetes mortality going through the roof, as we see. Let's see, I just want to get to this slide. So here we essentially have the same factor, U.S. population diagnosed with diabetes. So now we're going to talk about same kind of thing from an insurance company, from the United Health Group. This is the number I want to get to. So this is just going back to 2007. So you see the dramatic increases just from 2007 to 2010, which is when this study was done. Look at these increases. Now we're talking about dollars here. So the projection in 2010 that the UHG made was that type 2 diabetes alone will cost $2.5 trillion and almost $3.5 trillion to all types of diabetes. Again, primarily related and caused by health and lifestyle choices. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the standard American diet. What is the standard American diet? They call it SAD. This is the USDA guideline. I'm not going to get into the USDA guidelines, which are a little nutty, but essentially, this is what's happening. You see some differences here. The interesting thing here is this carbohydrate number. Carbohydrates have kind of been made bad lately. There's a lot of science to support that, but there's also an awful lot of science that really calls into question the fact that carbohydrates might be bad. There are certain carbohydrates that are probably really bad. For instance, high fructose corn syrup. 10% of the calories that we intake in this country, man, woman, and child, 10% of our intake of calories is in high fructose corn syrup. So here, this is another interactive thing that I couldn't copy, so I took 3 screenshots from it. What I want you to look is the grains, the added fat, and added sugar number. And also notice how these 4 numbers from 70 to 2008, when we end, pretty much stay the same. So here's the next one, grains, added fat, added sugar, lifestyle. Right here, grains, added fat, added sugar. Again, lifestyle. Now, what we're looking at is what's happened during this period is there were 2 studies done. One in 1977 that was done by the United States, dietary goals for the United States, and the second one in 1982, which is the study on diet, nutrition, and cancer. Again, government-funded studies. What happened that was very interesting after that is that you see these things started to happen. We started to see all of this food science stuff. So primarily, these things are happening from processed food. So we move on. We look at some children's eating habits from 77 to 2002. Again, I'm just drawing some correlations. I don't know how related these are, but it's worth taking a look at and asking about. So salty snacks. Look, Mexican dishes. I don't know why Mexican dishes is there. I'm not going to get into that. I happen to really like Mexican food. I had it for dinner last night. But anyway, candy. So, and then also notice the negative number right here, and then the fried potatoes, which I find very interesting. This came from the Wall Street Journal. It's a continuation of the same study. 1977, milk, almost half the instances of milk. Is milk really bad for us? I'm not quite sure. Soda, about more than doubled. Fruit drinks. This is interesting too. There's a difference between fruit drinks and fruit juice. Now, ideally, we don't want to take in a ton of sugar. But the bottom line is, if you're drinking fruit juice, you're getting the actual juice of the fruit. If you're drinking fruit drinks, take a look at that label. And I would be willing to bet you 9 times out of 10, the second thing on that label after water is high fructose corn syrup. So that's what most of the fruit drinks are. And then they have additives to give you the vitamins. Snacking. This is something also interesting. 40% of the people said they don't snack. 2002, 10% of the people don't snack. Again, why are we snacking? Because these things are available to us. This stuff, highly processed, easy to get, easy, quick, easy food. All right, so when we go out to restaurants, again, same kind of thing. What are we getting in fast food restaurants? We're getting an awful lot of processed food. 1% in fine dining. Okay, so they get expensive, but the bottom line is you can go and make healthy choices at any of these. These two areas are where we're going to really be able to be served good, fresh food. 14% of orders hamburger, blah, blah, blah. Basically the same kind of stuff. So what do we do? So, all right, so we talk about diet. I say, read the label. That's not going to help. Nobody does that, right? I mean, I do, but I'm probably in the 2% on that particular area where it actually affects my habits. Most people don't. So what do we do about this? How do we make this fun? Because the bottom line is, if we don't get something out of it, if we don't really see it, if we don't enjoy ourselves, then what do? So my whole idea is I've created something that I'm calling the Legacy Food Project, which is connecting our food heritage to our food future. So it's kind of keeping with my roots of growing up in a small town, working on farms. I've worked both on small farms and I've worked on factory farms. So the Legacy Food Project is to take and to look at our history. We are an agrarian society. If you look at the people who signed the Constitution of the United States, 85% of them called themselves farmers. We come from a group of people. It's who we are. It's our heritage. And so what is our future? Well, our food future does not necessarily have to be science. I'm not saying that science is bad, but I am saying that there's an awful lot of science out there that is giving us statistics that are not translating into health. Low carb, low fat, whatever. This week oat bran is great. Next week oat bran is off the shelf and it's something else. So what is it? What is it? So Here's what I'm doing. I'm creating my project right now. What I'm concentrating on now is creating a mobile app. So the future is in apps. People, 20% of, I just read this like 3 days ago, 20% of corporate CEOs spend at least 2 hours a day playing games, video games. I just got my iPhone. I am a late adopter for a tech guy. I've had a BlackBerry for 12 years. That thing is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. When I get bored, if something happens, I look outside, oh, tree. Let's see if there's an app for that. There's an app for everything. And it's a blast, right? So we do it, and it's really, really fun. So what are we going to do? So I'm creating a mobile application, and it's going to be huge. It's basically Yelp, and I don't know if you know Yelp. Yelp is an online program that has actually a pretty darn good app. And so what it is it searches restaurants, it searches food. And so what I want to do, my whole idea is when you go into the restaurant, try this. Okay, everybody try this. Just do me one thing. The next time you go to a restaurant, whatever you want to eat, whatever looks really good. I mean, I am not an advocate of a vegetarian diet. I've had a vegetarian diet. I eat a lot of meat today. Not a lot, a couple, 3 times a week. But the thing is, every time I go out and if I want a burger or if that steak special looks really good, I ask the waiter or waitress, where did it come from? People look at me like I have 4 heads. It's unbelievable. But every once in a while you find a place and you see that waiter or waitress perk up and they're like, yeah, it comes from Bob's farm. He's 75 miles away. He comes down every Thursday night in his truck and he does it and he grows his own stuff, he does it locally, he does it healthfully. So one of Michael Pollan's things that he does and that he talks a lot about is our food being steeped in oil. I was at Whole Foods the other night. I really like Whole Foods. I think it's a great business. It's a lovely business. Organic aisle. I wanted to get organic food from California, from California, from California, from California, from California. I don't want to buy organic food from California. I would actually rather buy conventional locally because overall it may actually be best for me in the holistic picture. So I'm just running out of time here, but basically it's Yelp, it's the food app coupled with Facebook, so it really creates a community, and what it does is it plugs the farm in. So when you sit down at that dinner table, you actually plug a code into your computer. And if the restaurant is participating, the picture of the farm comes up, the special of the day comes up. And no, you're not going to see Bessie as your burger special. Ideally, that's a little morbid for us. But what you will see is maybe the picture of the guy and his family and his farm. And it will tell you, there will be a little GPS map kind of thing there. And it'll say, this piece came from 75 miles away, or 150 miles away, or 500 miles away. And it will tell you. And the thing is that what we do is the more we buy local, we stimulate our own economies. It's known, it's a proven fact that everything that comes, every time we pull out of a recession, it's small business that pulls us out of recession, and it's showing true today in farming. The job growth in the United States, in the agricultural sector, is happening on small farms. It is not happening on large corporate farms. They're paring down and they're getting rid of people. So this is what, whoops. So creating a whole food system, creating a local economy. Pollan coined the term locavore, and that's kind of what the whole legacy food project is all about. So thank you.